Hi guys, and welcome back to Abridged by Scot. I am Rabu, I am the titular Scot. This is Tolkien Abridged, the Silmarillion Abridged. And as ever, our mission statement, Tolkien, hard to understand, but wonderful. What else is wonderful but hard to understand? The Scottish. So here we go. So last time, we covered quite a lot. There was some war crime imprisonment. There was basically a Second World War. The elves came to town. They went on a pilgrimage. It's all been happening. So let's jump into the latest chapter. In fact, let's jump into two chapters, because it turns out when I was scripting this that the next chapter of Thingol and Melian is in fact roughly about 4 words. Well, maybe not 4 words, because that's literally the title of the chapter. But it's not much longer than that. So, we will be covering 2 chapters today. Chapter 4 of Thingol and Melian, and Chapter 5 of Eldamar and the Princes of the Eldalië. So let's go. So Chapter 4 of Thingol and Melian. So, firstly, who is Melian? Melian is essentially Yavanna Light. She's kind of like in a tree spirit. She's a Mire, so she's not quite a Valar, not quite like, the absolute, the big swinging dicks, but like a smaller kind of static dick. And basically her whole gimmick is she does like little concerts and stuff in Valinor, and people are like, oh god, she's great at singing and dancing and stuff. And basically she decides to take this on tour, and she goes to Middle-earth. And she's like Nature Swift, she's in her Middle-earth era. And she's kicking about, and her boy Elwë, that was mentioned before, he goes walking in the woods. He's looking for his pal Finwë. He's like, oh, we're still on this pilgrimage, etc. Still in Beleriand, and he hears nightingales, which are, it's kind of like Melian's calling card, essentially. And these nightingales are so nightingale-y that they wipe his memory. Yep. He forgets all about his people, about the fact that he's a monarch, about the fact that he's meant to be leading his people on a great pilgrimage. And he just goes walking into the woods looking for this noise. He finds Melian, and they hold hands, and that's it. For a couple of centuries, they literally just stand there, and they're just so captivated with each other. Time literally stands still when they meet each other, across a crowded forest and all that. So that's Elwë out of the picture for a couple of centuries. So his brother Olwë has to take over back at camp. And basically we get like a little glimpse forward. Elwë is going to go, and he's going to go on to become a great king of this area called Beleriand, which is where a lot of the Silmarillion is going to take place. He's going to be the king of the Grey Elves, the Sindar, as they're called. And he's going to make himself a little, kind of underground clubhouse, a little kingdom called Menegroth, which means the 1,000 Caves. And this is a kingdom called Doriath, which is, again, just, I know I'm throwing a lot of names at you. Try and keep them in mind. We're going to, get to them one by one as more important things happen. But Tolkien's basically just kind of laying the ground rules for it and stuff here. So basically he's going to be a great king and stuff. Basically not only is he going to be a great king, but essentially Melian gives him like this like Mire kind of buff, and essentially becomes like the most powerful elf in existence. He's absolutely souped up, he's on the gear, like he is just, he's fucking jacked, like he's just like the most elvish elf, and he's going to be known as Thingol, is going to be his name, hence the chapter of Thingol and Melian. And we just get a little tiny spoiler as well, that their child is going to be super important to this story, like really. There's maybe like 3 or 4 characters in the Silmarillion that are completely, like, you can't take them out even the slightest bit, or the entire story just doesn't happen, and that child is going to be one of them. But anyway, so that was chapter 4. You see what I mean? A bit of a short one. Didn't really cover much apart from, 2 people meeting in the woods and continuing to be in the woods for a long time. So on to something a bit more exciting. Here we go, chapter 5 of Eldamar and the Princes of the Eldalië. So we get ourselves a quick little geography lesson here. So in the north of Arda, so this is post World War II. This is post like the Valar fucking going at it, with an absolute slog or knocker. punches and kicks on a galactic scale kind of thing. And basically in the north, the two continents kind of come together a bit. So there's this narrow sea between them. And it seems that Melkor was spamming ice magic, at whatever point they were fighting here, because there's this grinding ice that links the north of the two continents. Bear this in mind because it will be very important later. Anyway, so Arome, big hunter boy, he takes the Eldar to the west coast of Beleriand, because he's like, you don't need to go up to the chilly bit, boys. That's all good. You don't even have coats. Like, you barely exist, so, we'll just come here. So go to the coast. And Ulmo turns up, the watery wanderer that he is, and he tells them, guys, don't be scared. I can see that you're absolutely terrified of this huge mass of water that you've literally never seen anything like. It's grand. In fact, you know what? Let's fucking do it. And he takes a literal island and moves it across the ocean and goes, get in. So they jump on this island, and he is going to take them across to Valinor on it. For any One Piece fans, essentially it's thriller bark. It's literally an island-sized ship, so it's pretty metal. So big fan of that. Anyway, so they're off. Boom. Away to Valinor. The Teleri, who are kind of lagging behind and stuff, they turn up way, way too late. Like, they thought boredom was still happening. Flight's away, boys. Sorry, And they get there, and they're like, where's the boat? What's going on? They literally missed the boat. So they come to the west coast, and Diet Poseidon, Ossie, turns up, and it's like, oh, guys, you just missed it. You want me to teach you some nautical shit? And they're like, fuck yeah, Ossie, teach us some fucking nautical shit. And yeah, basically, the Noldor and Finwë in particular, when they reach Valinor, they're like, what about the others? What about our boys? What about the... Can't leave them behind. Come on, Ulmo, please go back. And Ulmo's like, I have to interact with more people today. Fine, okay, I will literally move this island back across the ocean. You're not really asking much of me, are you? Takes it back across. And most of the Teleri are like, yay, finally the boat's back, woo! Ossie, on the other hand, who was like, oh, I'm finally going to have some friends. It's like, but guys, I can only hang out in Middle-earth. Don't you want to stay and hang out with old Ossie? And some of them get that kind of like minor societal pressure and go, yeah, fuck it, we won't go to paradise, we'll stay here and be sea elves, I guess. And they do, and some of them stay. And there is one who becomes their lord, and his name is Círdan the Shipwright. And believe me, he is going to be alive for a long, 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 long time. A long, long ass time. Círdan is one of there's only so many characters that make it all the way from the first age to the end of the third age, and Círdan is one of them. Lord of the Rings fans might be familiar with obviously the end scene where Frodo, Gandalf, etc. sail off into the Undying Lands. Círdan is the shipwright there. You know what I mean? Like, that's how long we're talking. Like, the world barely exists, and this guy's still going to be around then. Anyway, enough about Círdan. Yeah, so basically some of Elwë's friends as well. So after Elwë went running off into the forest after Nightingales, totally responsible monarch, some of his friends are like no, we can't leave him. I'm sure we'll find him. Like, he'll be back in like 5 minutes. Honestly, they end up just like hanging around here forever, essentially. And they call themselves the Eglaff, which means the Forsaken People. To which I say, fucking shit up, boys. Come on, the Forsaken. Very emo of you, to be honest. You literally chose to stay. You could have gone to paradise, and you decided, no, let's hang around for our very, 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 very careless monarch. Anyway. And then, funnily enough, what should happen? But after a while, Elwë and Melian emerge from the trees, and basically he's like, yeah, well, the trees of Valinor were great, but see how hot my wife is? Like, she's basically the two trees in like spirit form, so yeah, I'm just gonna stay here. And then I think at this point, Elwë might have actually manifested out of the pages of the Silmarillion and taken the pen from Tolkien and written this next part. Because it essentially just goes into detail about how, like, basically just about how cool Elwë is. And it's just like, man, he was so cool, and he's got this like grey hair and stuff, and everybody loves him, and he's legit like the tallest ever. He's the tallest elf ever. Like, bro actually hits the 6'5", by the way. Sure, man. Yeah, Elwë, I'm sure that you're super cool. Like, we all do. I'm sure, if anybody wants to drop down in the comments how much they love Elwë / Elwë Thingol, go for it. But anyway, yeah, so basically, the Teleri are on the island now. They're going across to Valinor, and Ossie, being the clingy little bitch that he is, goes after them and basically goes, guys, please, I want to hang out, come on. And again, societal pressure dictates it, and they're like, okay, Ossie, we'll hang out with you for like a couple of 100 years, I guess. And Ulmo's like, yeah, just please, Ossie, just fuck it, like, go for it. And he binds the island to the seabed. It becomes the Lonely Isle. This is where the Teleri are going to live for now. They go back, and the other Valar aren't happy, but, Ulmo's going to Ulmo. You know what I mean? So the Watery Wonder are gonna do what he want. So back in Valinor, doing some construction. The elves are friendly here. Here we go. This is great. The Valar make them this big city called Tirion, which is where the Vanyar and the Noldor are gonna live. And it's fucking class. We just get this long ass description of just how class it is and how good it looks and blah blah blah. But essentially, yeah, that's where they are now. This is their home and like paradise, etc. And just because we haven't had enough, forward references to the Lord of the Rings at this point. So they really love the trees of Valinor. So Yavanna makes them like a little white tree, kind of equivalent, just to be in their city. And it's called Celeborn. And it is going to give birth to another tree called Nimloth, which will become the white tree of Numenor. And then its fruit will go on to become the white tree of Gondor. So there we go. You could say, What a family tree, huh? Didn't. Tough crowd. Anyway, so the Noldor now have a place to live. That's class. And Aule is just like, guys, I'm going to teach you every single thing I know. And the Noldor are like, Aule, we already know everything you know. And in fact, we've actually learned more stuff by ourselves. So get good, old man. Skill issue. Because Finway's people, the Noldor, they have dug into this area, and they've found gems and stuff. They've learned how to craft them and cut them and stuff. Basically have so many of them, they're just giving it away to like other elves and stuff. Like, look at this shit we made. Oh, look how good this is. Bear this in mind, because this will not be the case forever. In fact, this will be ridiculous for them to do. Anyway, so now we just get, the end of the chapter is essentially just going over who are going to be some of the most important elves in this story. And just getting like a vague kind of family tree. Again, the story is really about the Noldor, this crafting race of elves, specifically the kind of middle family of these three of these. We've got a bit of a trident going on here, in the middle prong, if you will, is the Noldor. So Finwë, he's the king of the Noldor, and by all accounts, he's pretty sound. He's a good king. Everybody, all my homeboys love Finwë. So he has two sons. I'm gonna have to do this in an odd order. But he has two sons by his second wife, Indus. And their names are Fingolfin and Finarfin. They're going to be really, 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 really important going forward. However, his first son by his first wife is, without a shadow of a doubt, the most important character in the entire Silmarillion. Without this character, none of the rest of the story happens. And also, really specifically, without all of the bad decisions that he makes, the Silmarillion doesn't happen. And this character's name is Fëanor. He is easily, I would say, the most divisive character in the whole book, probably in the whole of Tolkien, actually, I would maybe say. People are going to have opinions about Fëanor. I first read this book when I was like 12. I've read it several times since then, and pretty much every single time since then, I have maybe had like a slightly different opinion of Fëanor. But anyway, so yeah, Fëanor, he's of the three brothers, he's the most skilled in like words in hand. He is a learned gentleman. He knows his shit. He just gets it. Big brain, 4,000 IQ Fëanor. Fingolfin, he's the strongest, he's the absolute Chad of the family, just jacked, juicy, toned, tanned. And Finarfin is really good looking. So that's what he's got going on. So then we go down a generation. So the 7 sons of Feanor. So we do get more specific descriptions here about like their whole gimmick, like each of them. But they are going to come up a lot. And again, their bad decisions as a family are going to come up a lot. So I don't think there's any point specifically going into them yet because these things are going to become so apparent down the line. So Feanor's 7 sons are Maedros, Maglor, Kelegorm, Curifin, Caranthir, Amrod, and Amras. The last 2 are twins, by the way. Fingolfin's children, they are Fingon, Turgon, and Eredel. And then, again, just in case we haven't had enough, fast forward into the Lord of the Rings in this episode, the children of Finarfin are Finrod, Orodreth, Angrod, Aegnor, and they have a sister. And her name is Galadriel, who you might be familiar with. And again, just like Ciaran the Shipwright, she is going to be alive for a long time. Speaking of long times, a couple of 100 years after hanging at Rossi, the Teleri, they've fucking had it with this clingy bitch, this clingy sea spirit. And they're like, dude, we really just want to go to paradise. It's like right over there. Like, we not hung out enough. We have played cards so many times. Ossie, please, can we just leave? And Ossie's like, fine, I guess, okay. And he teaches them how to build some ships and he gives them some super jacked swans to like pull them over to the coast and stuff. And finally, the Teleri, after so long, are now in Aman. They are in Valinor. Well, not quite Valinor, because they can go to Valinor, but again, they've become sea boys. They have become coastal dwellers in the time that they've been on the Lone Island. So they make their own kind of seaside town. They make the troon of Valinor, which is called Aquilont. And so that's where they settle. The Vanyar, so like the super special elves, so like the first prong of the trident, they decide, you know what? We are so religiously devout to Manwë that we can't live in this beautiful city that he built for us. No. We literally need to go and live on the mountain where Manwë lives, where he trips balls every other time that there's a problem. So they go and live there. The Noldor are left to have Tyrion all to themselves, so that's pretty sick. They've now got their roommates have moved out. They're great for, their friends, the Teleri, are right over there. What could ever go wrong? And we just get, maybe just some foreshadowing here. But so, Feanor and his sons, they don't really ever hang about in one place for long. If anything, they're always looking for knowledge and stuff. They go travelling a lot. They go to, the edge of the map. Here there be monsters, etc. If you think that they're separate from the other elves just now, just you wait. So anyway, that is the end of our double feature chapter today. Next time, we'll be covering chapter 6 of Feanor and the Unchaining of Melkor. And I know what you're all thinking, oh god, they're actually going to let Melkor out. Melkor's actually up for parole. Are they not? How are they not? Why are they? Exactly. So make sure you don't miss next time when Melkor might be, he might be back on the street. We'll have to find out. I'll catch you next time, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Again, bye.